It's time for the last of the 3 recent figures that have absolutely blown me away, and the one of them that I'm sure that most of you are still probably going to pass up. It's Legacy United Tidal Wave. Tidal Wave. Tidal Wave. Tidal Wave. Tidal Wave. But first, your likes. Please give, and maybe subscribe. And curses, I gotta break out the big light box for this one, which is always a massive pain in my nads. It takes up so much space, and anything that can only fit in here is like an isometric exercise to show off. Case in point, Tidal Wave here is likely the only figure I'm ever going to say probably should have just been a statue, because he is the only character in all of the Transformers to animate like... As I'm writing this, I am sure that doing that with my arm just about killed me in real life, but you know what? That's a problem for future me. Anyways, this is absolutely one of the best figures they've put out in Legacy. I've only got 2 issues with it. The color. The purple version of this dude was never a Titan. That was the far better looking green version. Seriously, this should have not been this color based on the fact that all the Decepticon Titans so far have been purple alone. It is becoming a problem. And the chin. It's too much. It's too much. Otherwise, this is for sure one of the best Titans they've made so far. It looks great, it feels great, it's probably the most stable one, and that includes Trypticon, who is basically balanced on a massive third leg. And none of the joints have those sickly ratchets that apparently self-destruct like the Kingdom Arcs do, as I anticipated they would. No, these are the kind that even make me and my ratchet unimpressed ass go, ooh, I love the sound. He's not the tallest of the Titans. That honor still goes to Madam I have to crouch to fit in the big light box and cannot fit in PerspectiveEnd's largest shelf in robot mode, Nemesis. But at the same time, he manages to feel the least like a commitment to handle. The Nemesis, the Arc, Omega Supreme, they're all Titans. This just feels like a big figure. And as a result, I find myself picking it up more just to mess with it than I normally do with figures of this scale. Hell, I even have more fun messing with this than I do Legacy Armada Optimus Prime just because he feels like I have to focus on him less. I think it might just be that for a Titan class, he's probably the cleanest one ever released. Omega Supreme had wings and a backpack. Trypticon is a dinosaur who takes a ton of space front to back. The Arc is wearing the baggiest clothes meant for someone else imaginable and also like he's wearing an inner tube sideways. Meanwhile, this is just a dude. There's no backpack, there's no mess, it's just a guy. Normally that would kind of make it feel like a regular figure that got blown up to proportions they never should have gone with. See Cybertron Starscream. But it works here. It feels good, the plastic is nice and solid, you just want to play with this thing, giving him more animation than he ever had in the show. Unfortunately, he doesn't have individual leg cutouts. Seriously, you guys couldn't have split this, making it into 2 pinned parts, because now he looks like he's wearing a skirt every time he takes a step. But I think the ugliest aspect of this whole thing is the hands. So let me get this straight. They are these horrible misshapen things entirely so you could use the gimmick to make them into these even more horrible misshapen things. Guys, at some point you need to learn that compromises cannot be corrected by more compromises. Sometimes you just gotta let a thing look dumb the 10% of the time that you decide to use this feature. Or with me, more like the 0%, and then have it look good the other 90%. Because making it look like shit 100% of the time, ain't it, Chief? Now the head is... I don't like the head. At the best of times, Tidal Wave looks like what if Easter Island stood up and also was a Muppet. But now he looks like a grandpa pretending to be an old Roman statue that comes to life in a Ray Harryhausen movie. And now that I say that, that actually sounds like an absolutely sick line of toys. Look, I just want this face in purple with green accents and a smaller chin. Is that too much to ask? So this is a large, fun robot mode that I'm super psyched to have. But you know what? There's a lot going on with this thing, so let's just jump right into the accessories. And for accessories, he comes with himself. Well, like 80% of himself and like 20% of a middle finger to us for buying this guy. Because not only does this tiny version of him lack stuff like a head, it actively locks out its greatest potential. Like the thigh joint is blocked at the top, preventing you from even making an upgrade kit that would allow you to turn this into a fully fledged tiny Tidal Wave. And I'm absolutely positive the only reason they did this was to force a second sale on some customers. Because if this dude came in green and he had a tiny version of himself that people could assemble, then there is no way that people would buy the inevitable green repaint. Or purple one, I suppose. Anyways, it makes a stupid power-up for Megatron. It's the fun, silly thing from the show, but I can't help but resent this aspect for intentionally gimping itself. At least a tiny version of the Dark Fleet is cute, though the aircraft carrier is a bitch to straighten out the way it's supposed to go. If I wasn't bitter, these would be fine accessories. Then Posability on this guy rocks for a Titan. Second best they've ever released. Head has a full rotation, and an extra included joint giving you massive tilt up for all of your Guardians of the Galaxy 3 needs. Shoulders pull significantly more than a 90 and have kind of butterfly joints, a good bit better than 90 elbows, and extremely weirdly articulated hands, with a folding and double rotating thumb on an eccentric pin and double-jointed quad fingers. He has a waist rotation that is inhibited by the skirt, legs are mostly unimpeded forward and excessively unimpeded to the back and sides, normal 90 knees, and feet with a serious pivot and a heel and toe down. So torso up is fantastic, hips down and you're looking at average, which is amazing for a Titans class. The only one even similar to this is the Nemesis, who is better by a good margin, but hey, I'll take this over an average figure, let alone a Titan. Then let's get into the first transformation. This guy is a premium parts former, like Omega Supreme before him, and that's fine when it's doing a thing like this. It's breaking down into 3 different vehicles, the first of which is a chunky aircraft carrier, which is stupidly easy to get into. You are basically just straightening out the arms and then slapping them together. Second is this weird mutant battleship thing that looks like what if an artist who didn't know anything about how boats work was forced by a dictatorship to design a brutalist battleship to project the idea of oppression visually at gunpoint. Always remember to have the chest up on its stock before you try this. I forgot once, and I did a lot of damage to the ports because of it. Lastly are the tragically sabotaged legs that form the landing craft. Gone is its ability to hold minicons or smaller robots, gone is its ability to hold itself. And what we are left with for this one is just the wet fart of this whole figure. At least until we get to the base mode. Let's be clear here. There's kind of sadly nothing really good about this version of the Dark Fleet. The aircraft carrier looks like it needs to go on a diet, and it lost its cool elevator gimmick. The battleship has an entire crotch sticking off its ass and only a barely concealed head. And well, the less said about the landing craft, the better, because somehow they completely failed to design the easiest thing in the world. This needed to have the thighs fold in and have the sides peg into each other, and yet... how? You completely threw the gimmick in the trash, and I'm forced to fake it by leaving it untransformed, but you couldn't be bothered putting on even one more peg so this thing can have 5% of the hold that it needs? Literally, I just pick this up and it falls in half every time. I can hold it evenly on both sides, and it still happens. The other two members of the Dark Fleet are a little underwhelming, but this one is flat infuriating. Good thing he has another alt mode, and this one is even easier to get into. You just hinge the pontoons out to the side after lifting the chest again, pinch the aircraft carrier in the middle of that, and then peg the landing craft onto the sides where it actually has hold, and hell yeah, that's the stuff, that's what I'm looking for. A monster combination aircraft carrier battleship spaceship that would make the Yamato blush. The robot mode is great. The Dark Fleet is okay except for the landing craft. But this I fuck with. I understand that apparently the old transformation allowed you to keep the whole thing together without any parts forming, and honestly that version might have had fewer gaps and been more cohesive, but I can't be mad in the face of this thing. Whether this is flying in space or prowling the oceans, this looks awesome. It's big, it's imposing with the giant cannons and I think these are mortar tubes. The flight deck looks like it's finally part of something the appropriate size, and like maybe if these stinking gaps weren't there, then planes could actually launch from deep within the body of it. And that's my only real complaint here. They really needed to spend a little more budget filling out these holes here and here. How did a 20-year-old figure do this with less compromise? I'm not going to say that I think that the original figure was better looking. I think it's clear to see that this is the more attractive version. But like at a minimum, all you needed was some flaps to flip out and fill these gaps. Or if you had the thighs do something fancy, then the legs could have gotten closer to the sides. You had options, so why did you go with giant gaps? The rest of this is cool. Weirdly, this has the capacity to roll. I'm not entirely sure why, since this is supposed to fly and float, so adding casters for this functionality seems unnecessary. And as fun as this could be, they are insanely tight, so there's only like 3 or 4 of them that will actually even try working. It's also so much fun to fiddle with the cannons that make the Nemesises look like tiny tryhards. Though maybe it could be that they only look like this because of proportional differences. Like the Nemesis might just be gigantic in comparison to an aircraft carrier. Also, you just gotta love how the only figures that seem to get blast effect pimples anymore are Titans, so you can pretend someone bombed the shit out of them. So this mode rules, but it has a few flaws in the form of how see-through certain parts are, desperate to sink it if it were in water. And I think that the only reason they are there is because of this last little bit of it. This has a base mode. You basically go back to robot mode and bend the legs weirdly, then do a bunch of parts forming, and this does not have a base mode. This is nothing. There has never been a base mode that is more nothing than this. It's not even like up to interpretation. This is just not a base mode. There's nothing even approaching a base mode here. This is a dude lying on his back, knees and elbows bent, with a dice tower in his shirt, holding a drumstick and sitting on another. What is this? What is this? Why did they go? You know what this needs? A single small plank hanging off of his stage left ass cheek, like he accidentally sat down on his own turd. What is this? What is this supposed to be? All the rest of this thing looks 0% like a base mode, but at least I have some idea how laziness led them to making the choices that they made. But this astonishes me. It's baffling. What the fuck happened? Why? Is someone just allergic to symmetry? I am incensed by this base mode. There's never been a worse base mode, and that includes Grandis, who at least looked like some road. This is a sin, a blight on the figure. It looks like nothing and is of no use to anyone on Earth. All it does is steal budget away from the rest of a pretty amazing figure. The Nemesis did not have a base mode, and we did not miss it. We could have had those gaps filled. We could have had him come with a tiny version of himself. We could have had him come with tiny little blast effect versions of characters to put on him, implying that he's actually Titanic like he was in-game. Just like the Nemesis came with. Instead, we got
0 out of 10. 0 out of 10! Sometimes you run around this game! This! Now what is this, you may ask yourself? Classic case of 0 out of 10. It has really good this!
So look, this doesn't change my ranking. Overall, you can completely ignore the base mode, and I forever will. I will never be able to get over the fact that I could have made a better one in my sleep, but I still think that this is an awesome Titan. It's easily the most playable of its size class in robot mode, managing to feel like a big figure plus, rather than being a handful like most Titans are. It's got strong posability, and the gimmicks are fun, even if they leave this figure a little bit compromised. I enjoy the transformation to the Dark Fleet, and I wish I liked the Dark Fleet more. Really, if the landing craft had even a hope of holding itself together, then maybe I'd sing a different tune. But not only does it not try to, it feels like it's actively attempting to split in half like someone who lost an anime sword fight. The other two are fine, if overly chonky, but the real dampener is just the landing craft, sacrificing its gimmicks to gain nothing. But then there's the ultimate battleship of doom mode, like a boss from a video game, which they were wise enough to actually make this dude into once upon a time. And not only is the transformation to that satisfying and relatively simple, but it's also just rad as hell. A mode that combines all the cool factor of an aircraft carrier, a dreadnought, and a spaceship. Can anyone say anything other than hell yeah when faced with this? I'm comfortable with this figure being a parts former even if I treat it as only having 2 modes. Here's hoping that by the time this comes out in green, they've fixed the hovercraft, because when he finally is in his true colors, it will be a micro masterpiece. Does that term work for something that's from a video game? Anyways, he can't really be one until he is green because this is way too big to be the guy from the show. And before we go, let's thank a patron. And this time it's... I am absolutely positive that this spinner has a preference for the most recently added entry. Killjoy Ghoul with Generations Thrust. What's that? The Earthrise Seeker mold, but from before they turned it to shit? This was a decade-old figure when the ER version came out, and yet they managed to ruin it. I will gladly get every version of the Generations mold over a single other version of the ER one. And this one, despite being a decade old, didn't faux form. I don't understand, guys. You retooled the cockpit and the head on the Earthrise version, so why didn't you just retool it so it didn't have parts forming, you idiots? This figure proved that that was possible and is infinitely better. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.